Hi, 18 Cinema Summary here. In this video, we are going to tell you the full recap of a movie called Old Boy. This film tells about a man locked up in a room with no windows for 15 years. He doesn't know who locked him up, why he was locked up, even where he was locked up. Until one day he was released from his cage. He had sex with a girl, who turned out to be his own child. How could he possibly have sex with his own child? Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In 1988, a middle-aged man named Dae-soo was arrested for public intoxication and disorderly conduct on the night of his daughter's birthday. After his friend named Yo-hwan bails him out, he calls his daughter on the phone to tell her to wait for him. However, before he could go home, he suddenly disappeared, leaving his daughter behind the present. Soon, Dae-soo finds himself locked up in a hotel room with no windows, not knowing who his captors were or why he was abducted. He is constantly fed through a trapdoor. He is also being gassed almost regularly whenever his captors cut his hair. The only way Dae-soo can learn about the outside world was through the TV. One day, he finds out that his wife had been killed, and he has become the prime suspect, because the captors put his blood and fingerprints at the crime scene. Dae-soo has started suffering from hallucinations as months and years pass. He continues to descend into madness, and tries to take his own life several times, but his captors revive him. Dae-soo starts writing down the names of people who might grudge against him. He also starts training himself to fight against his captors. After 6 years, he had begun dig a hole through the wall, using a metal chopstick. He keeps removing a few bricks from the wall until he can hold out his hand and feel the rain outside. He wants to cover the hole with the bed. Unfortunately, the captors knocks him by the sleeping gas. Once he wakes up, a woman arrives in his room and hypnotizes him. After 15 years in captivity, he emerges from a luggage and finds himself outdoors, wearing a brand new suit and a watch. He looks around and sees another man sitting on the ledge. Seeing another human being for the first time, Dae-soo holds the man's hand to relish his freedom. The man is about to suicide, then Dae-soo grabs him by his necktie. Dae-soo tells the man to listen to his story first before suicide. After telling his story, Dae-soo walks away and grabs his stuff. As Dae-soo leaves the building, the man falls to his death. Dae-soo starts contemplating his next move. He then sitting in front of a seafood restaurant. Suddenly, a homeless man hands him a cell phone and a wallet full of money. The homeless man tells Dae-soo that he doesn't know anything, and he leaves. With the money, Dae-soo enters a sushi bar, and asks the server to bring him something alive to eat. Suddenly his phone starts ringing, and answers it immediately. The man on the other end asks Dae-soo if he likes his new suit. Dae-soo demands to know why he was incarcerated in, and starts guessing who was behind the abduction. The man on the phone tells Dae-soo to reflect on his past to find out why he was locked up. The mysterious voice went on to ask Dae-soo to find him quickly and hung up. The server brings him a live octopus as he requested. He then grabs it and devours it. He collapses as soon as he finishes his meal. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the server's apartment. The server tells him that the medicine she gave him was quite effective. While walking toward the bathroom, the server tells Dae-soo that the lock is broken. Despite the warning, Dae-soo still goes inside the toilet and forces himself on her. The server thwarts his attempt by hitting him on the head with the butt of the knife. Dae-soo prepares to leave the apartment, but the server stops him. She introduces herself as Mi-do, and tells him that she is also interested with him. He decides to look for his estranged daughter with Mi-do's help. They find out that a couple from Sweden had adopted his daughter. Dae-soo gives up on contacting his daughter, and goes on find a man who abducted him. The next day, Mi-do receives an online message from a man using the ID Evergreen. Dae-soo comes closer to investigate. Unexpectedly, Evergreen asks Dae-soo how it feels in the bigger prison. Soon, Dae-soo thinks that he can't trust Mi-do because her online relationship with Evergreen. So he tries to find his captors on his own. He soon discovers the restaurant that delivers the food that he had eaten while he was in captivity. He follows a delivery man to the building where he was incarcerated. He later discovers that the prison is run by a criminal organization, specializing in incarcerating people. Dae-soo tortures the man in charge of the operation by pulling out his teeth with the claws of a hammer. The man named Mr. Park says he never met with a client who paid for Dae-soo incarceration, but he recorded the phone call, and Dae-soo takes the recording. Dae-soo tries to leave the building, but a horde of men waits for him outside. Only with his hammer and fists, he fights them all off. He finally gets out of the building, but not long after, he collapses on the ground. Out on the street, someone helps him up, and puts him inside a taxi. The stranger gives the driver an address, and reveals himself responsible for locking up Dae-soo by calling him out by name. He listens to the recording, and hears the conversation between Mr. Park and the client. When Mr. Park asks what Dae-soo did to deserve lengthy incarceration, the client tells him that Dae-soo talks too much. The next day, Dae-soo pays a visit to his friend, Yo-hwan, to ask him if he recognizes the voice in the recording. Yo-hwan can't identify the client, but he helps Dae-soo find Evergreen online. Evergreen taunts Dae-soo further, by letting him know that the statute of limitations on him already expired. Dae-soo comes back to Mito's apartment and start torturing her, to find out what she knows about Evergreen. Suddenly Yo-hwan called to tell him that he had discovered Evergreen's identity. Yo-hwan tells him that Evergreen live in a building just across the street from Mito's apartment. He immediately runs to the apartment, and meets Evergreen, and his bodyguard, Mr. Han. Dae-soo tries to attack Evergreen, but the bodyguard fends him off. Evergreen tells Dae-soo that he will never find out the motive if he kills him. He further reveals that he is wearing a pacemaker, that he can deactivate with a push of a button. As Evergreen prepares to leave, he encourages Dae-soo to seek vengeance to deal with the pain of losing his wife and child. He reminds Dae-soo that he had left Mito tied up in her apartment with the door wide open. Dae-soo rushes back to Mito's apartment after hearing her scream. When he arrives, he sees Mr. Park and his goons abusing Mito. The goons overpower Dae-soo and hold down as Mr. Park attempts to remove his teeth. A phone call interrupts them. And Mr. Han later arrives at the apartment and offers a briefcase full of money to Mr. Park. After looking at the money, he agrees to take it and leave Dae-soo. Dae-soo threatens to cut off Mr. Park's hand for abusing Mito. Dae-soo and Mito leaves the apartment after the goons left. Mito sings a song to indicate that she is ready to get intimate with Dae-soo. Then they make love. After their lovemaking, sleeping gas seeps into their room, and Evergreen goes into there, and leave them a package. When they open it, they see Mr. Park's hand. Dae-soo then realizes that Evergreen has bugged them, so he goes to a shop to find the device and get rid of it. Sometimes later, Mito and Dae-soo stop by Yo-hwan Internet Cafe, to learn out more about Evergreen. Soon they realize that Evergreen was the name of their batch in their old high school. Dae-soo and Mito go to the school, to look at the yearbook for the class of '79. He learns that Evergreen was a fellow student named Lee Woojin. Dae-soo calls Yo-hwan asking about Woojin, but he doesn't recognize the name. Then Dae-soo starts asking about a female student named Soo-ah. Yo-hwan says that she died after Dae-soo transferred to another school. Yo-hwan also say that Soo-ah was a comfort woman. Unbeknownst to them, Woojin also at Yo-hwan's cafe during the phone call. Enraged by how Yo-hwan describes Soo-ah, Woojin kills him, and reveals that Soo-ah was his sister. Another former classmate tells Dae-soo that Yo-hwan spread the rumor about Soo-ah promiscuity. Dae-soo then recalls that he had accidentally witnessed Woojin and Soo-ah are engaging in intimate acts. He remembers that he had told Yo-hwan just before he transferred to another school. Using the clues left behind Woojin, Dae-soo was able to pinpoint where his former captor lies. Dae-soo confronts Woojin and accuses him of using hypnosis to erase the memory of what he witnessed in school. Woojin argues that it wasn't hypnosis that made him forget about the incident. Dae-soo forgot about it because it wasn't something that should concern him. Woojin reveals that rumors about Soo-ah getting pregnant has started to spread soon after Dae-soo left the school. Soo-ah began to be afraid that rumor will ruin their life and commit suicide. Woojin blamed Dae-soo for spreading the rumors. Dae-soo accuses Woojin of killing his sisters because he feared people would find out about their illicit relationship. Woojin dismisses the accusations. He then shows Dae-soo a photo album of his family. As Dae-soo flips through the album, he is horrified as he finds that his daughter had grown up to be Mito. It turns out that Woojin has prepared all these scenarios. He hypnotizes them, so they love each other as they meet for the first time. Enraged by what he discovered, Dae-soo attacks Woojin. But Mr. Han stops him. Dae-soo struggles to fight off Mr. Han, and Mr. Han is killed at the end. Woojin goes on to tell Dae-soo that Mr. Park is still working for him. Back in Mr. Park's building, Mito is presented with a gift box. Dae-soo tells over the phone not to look inside and wait for him to get back. Dae-soo starts to begging Woojin not to reveal the truth to Mito. As Woojin ever says that Dae-soo talks too much, he decides to cut off his tongue. Woojin finally relents and tells Mr. Park to keep the box closed. He walks away, leaves Dae-soo with remote control for his pacemaker. However, when Dae-soo pushed the button, and only played an audio recording of him and Mito making love, Woojin walks into the elevator and starts recalling Suo's death. As soon as the elevator opens, Woojin shoots himself. After the occasion, Dae-soo writes a letter to the hypnotist to tell his story and ask her for help. The hypnotist warns Dae-soo that something might go wrong and mess up his memory. Dae-soo agrees to go ahead with the session. Later on, Dae-soo wakes up alone in the snow. Mito comes over and tries to warm him up. She embraces Dae-soo and tells him that she loves him. Dae-soo breaks into a smile hearing about Mito's feelings for him. But the smile slowly turns into a look of grief and pain as they continue to embrace. And that wraps up our recap this time for the movie Old Boy. Feel free to drop a comment below as to what we should recap next. Thank you for watching.